It's the hottest story on Beacon Hill, a bizarre bill that would extend government's authority into the bedroom. But there's a huge caveat. The chances of the bill becoming law are basically nil. So what's worse, journalists missing that detail or catching it, but playing it up anyway? Adam Riley has more.
State Senator Richard Ross has been a low-profile figure on Beacon Hill until now.
Ross is getting a lot of flack for presenting the bill.
For the past few days, the media has been buzzing over a bill filed by Ross that would keep divorcing couples from having sex in their own homes.
Do you think lawmakers should have a say on what parents in the midst of a divorce can do in the bedroom?
Cue the sexy headlines, sexy photos, and furor at government overreach and arrogance. Except that wasn't really the story at all.
I do not support that particular bill.
For centuries, Massachusetts lawmakers have been filing bills written by their constituents upon request, whether they back them or not. And that's exactly what happened here.
So a constituent came to him and then petitioned him.
But as Boston Magazine's David Bernstein noted, those details were either ignored or minimized. So was the fact that the bill has no chance of passing. But hey, when you've got a super sexy story, you can't let the details get in the way. I think there is a legitimate story here. It's whether it's appropriate for Massachusetts to let citizens write any number of totally nutty bills that they then take to the legislature. But, that is not going to attract clicks the way that a story about, Massachusetts wants to ban divorce sex from divorcing people. It's not going to get people reading the same way. I love the headlines people came up with. We saw in that video set up just now, sex control, I believe, pictures of couples in a sort of state of post-conjugal bliss. A lot of clicks came out of this one, even though it wasn't really a story at all.
But there were some people making hay out of this, including the Democratic challenger. And there were
to Senator Ross,
to Richard Ross,
exactly,
who filed this on behalf of the constituent and does not want it to pass.
Saying that he should have proactively denounced it rather than waiting until the question came up about whether or not he supported it, which he says he doesn't.
I think that's pretty weak sauce. I mean, if you're a challenger, you got to do better than that.
That is pretty weak. And by the way, kudos, Adam, to our former Boston Phoenix colleague David Bernstein.
Indeed,
and our current Greater Boston analyst.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, he's done a lot of terrific political analysis, and he really showed in this story how foolish the rest of the media were being. But we're in a clickbait world right now, and we're in an upworthy BuzzFeed world, and people will do basically anything to get clicks. And what I thought was kind of appalling in a lot of the coverage is that you would tend to see the disclaimer in the story that was essentially showing why they shouldn't have even bothered to do the story. But they said, well, let's do the story anyway, and then we'll throw in the disclaimer.
Yeah, and you put it down about 90% of the way through so that everyone has gone ahead and read. Yeah.
I think it's worth saying a little bit more about David Bernstein's piece, which was not only was it just a really nice piece of study of journalistic debunking, but it also looked very deeply at it and noted, for example, that this same proposal had been coming out for years, since the early 2000s. And so it was a completely made-up, phony story and did not belong in any legitimate news organization.
All right, so here's the point I want to make. I don't think it's the clickbait issue at all. It's mob behavior by media. And we become little followers of the mob depending on who's at the top. And in this case, by the time it got to Daily Beast, that was it. All bets are off. Then everybody else said, hey! And let me just point out, Massachusetts had just come off of an upskirting law ruling, which sounded crazy to everyone else in the rest of the world, which is why the next day the legislature worked to reverse that. So in the world of normal people outside of Massachusetts and some inside, it didn't seem so weird that this kind of quirky bill might actually be coming to pass. And I saw it first. I didn't see any of those disclaimers. I just saw bills been...
Well, it's really...
It's interesting in that I think our image in the rest of the country is that we're ridiculously liberal and we're licentious about these things. And this was kind of a throwback to the old Puritan Massachusetts of banned in Boston and the
ancient arcane Commonwealth.
In terms of disclaimers, Boston.com, which was quick to this story, as far as I can tell, never issued any kind of disclaimer or correction walking back the story. On the other hand, you have Bostino, which put very high up this extremely apologetic disclaimer saying, since we first reported this additional context has been provided. We did not mean to mislead people about the severity of the threat of this bill. So it's an interesting case study, too, in the way some organizations will and some won't walk back that report.
Sort of a hybrid of journalism 101 in attribution and the parlor game telephone.